Welcome to After the Pull, the video series where I share with you guys my thoughts on all these comic books that I read for the current comic book week. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you guys love daily comic book content, if you love me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, guys, you came to the right place. Why don't you consider hitting that subscribe button? All right, guys, so before we get started, I gotta give a quick shout out to Mutant Beaver Comics. Guys, they got over 4,000 exclusive variant covers in their store. So if you love that type of thing, if you love collecting comic book cover art, check out mutantbeavercomics.com. There is a link in my description box below, corner 10. When you use that code, not only do you get to save 10% on that purchase, but you get to save on every purchase after that. So check out mutantbeavercomics.com. So with that being said, let's get started with this hefty week of comics. So in case you guys didn't check out my Worthy Ones video this past week, these were the comic books that were covered. Action Comics, this is the House of Brainiac story. This is part 1 of that event. We had Transformers issue 7 that was covered there. Also Ultimate X-Men issue 2. Then we had Rat City issue 1. And then Uncanny Valley issue 1. And also the Amazing Spider-Man issue 47. So again, if you want to hear my thoughts on those comic books, check out the Worthy Ones video that was done on Thursday. Napalm Lullaby issue 2. This is a 28-page comic for the price of $4. This one is written by Rick Remender and the art is done by Bengal. The artwork is like not necessarily my favorite in this comic. However, it's not bad. I thought this one was a step up from the last issue. We definitely got to see a little bit more character, facial expressions in this one. Where in the last issue, you did get to see like characters that did not have a face. And you get to see a little bit of that in this, but not nearly as much I felt in the last issue. And this book had a lot more emotional moments in here between father and son. What the first issue did not bring to the table was like what this comic was really about. And you get that more in this issue. We get to see brother and sister are trying to recruit their father to take on this godlike character that sees the world in his vision, and it's not for the benefit of the people that are living in here. Now, our heroes in this book have like 24 hours to get to this Forbidden Dome city, and they have to try to rescue a person that can take out the leader, the god in here. And it was kind of cool to see the situation that happened at hand. It was kind of like a Jedi type mind trick thing that happened. And at the end, you wind up getting to see what the city looked like. So again, this issue wasn't like my favorite book, and it was like, oh man, what's issue 2 going to bring? But it definitely said, okay, issue 2 is better. Let's check out issue 3 and let's see where this book actually goes. So I'm going to say that this one, this time around, was much better than average. I'm going to say this one was a B-. If you were thinking about giving up on Napalm Lullaby and you didn't pick up issue 2, I would say pick up issue 2. You might like the setup here, and again, we'll see where issue 3 goes. Carnage, this is issue 6, legacy numbering 36, 28 pages. This is $5 comic book. This book is written by Torun Grønbekk and the art is done by Pierre Perez. So when it came to this comic book, the artwork looks pretty grotesque. This book definitely has definitely a horror vibe, like slasher vibe to it, as we get to see like Cletus Cassidy do some grotesque murders in here, especially when it comes to this like little gangbanger right here, and he describes the body before death and stuff like that. So there's definitely like some creepy vibes in here, right? Serial killer vibes, which you can expect because it's the Cletus Cassidy character, right? And this book has been crossing over with Venom, and it's kind of like a very confusing little story if you've been reading the Venom book, and with the whole garden and Meredith and the different Eddie Brocks and things like that. And we get to see that Dylan was killed in the last issue, and the Venom symbiote is keeping him alive, but his soul is not there. It's like somewhere else in the other realm, and Flash Thompson's floating around all over the place, and there's just a lot of little weird things going on in this comic book. And really what happened is, like, you also got to experience the Carnage symbiote that crossed over to the other side, and for a short while Cletus wasn't with his other. So there's a lot of little different story threads, and you know, I guess this was the conclusion to this story arc and the whole crossover event in itself. Flash Thompson was kind of in this stasis. He was in limbo as well, and then it looks like at the end he like comes crashing down like back to Earth. I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's a little bit confusing, a little bit over my head, a little bit all over the place. I like the book. It's definitely just weird for me. I just like it when it was just like Cletus and he's like his serial killer self and just talking to people and being like, oh, you wish you were alive, or you wish you were dead, and you think you can beat me, and like him being like this god right here. I don't need him to cross over to Venom and all that other stuff. It just makes it too convoluted. I feel like maybe it's trying to boost sales or whatever it is, because it's like, ooh, Carnage and Venom. It's not like we haven't seen that before, right? So this one was alright for me. This one is going to be a C. It was average. I like the artwork, some good moments, but it just felt like almost like an incomplete type of crossover story arc. X-Men 97 issue 2. Holy cow, man. That episode 5 of X-Men 97 was... Ooh, that was a tearjerker. I'm not gonna lie, it really did get me upset, and I want to let you guys. I want to know your guys' opinion in that episode, because now that it's been out for a little while, I actually did cry, and I had to watch the scene again and just be like, I can't believe how much this actually did affect me. Just insane. But this is a 28-page comic for $4. This book is written by Steve Fox. The art here is done by Salvador Espin. Now, what this book offers for readers, for me at least, is not... yes, it does have, like, you know, obviously a story before what happens in the current episodes of the X-Men 97 series, but it feels almost more like the original X-Men comic back in the 90s, the way it's drawn. But when you pick it up, it's like, oh yeah, it's Saturday morning, I'm reading this, you know, this cartoon-like book, and it felt like that, you know, because you get to see Sabretooth get hired by Mr. Sinister, and we get to introduce to all like these, you know, B-rated, C-rated types of like mutants, like this Cena Blaze character, and they're all taking on all the different types of mutants in this comic book, and they all have like a contingency plan or a way to stop all our mutants in here. So it's kind of cool, man. It was fun, right? I don't think it's as intense again as the cartoon or as dark, and I don't know if it's meant to be like that, so that's why I kind of compare it to the original cartoon in my eyes. So it was fun just to see Mr. Sinister try to take on all these guys, obviously because he's got a goal in mind, and at the end we got to see a character that was missing from the first issue, so that's kind of cool, and I want to see more of him. So at the end of the day, this one was a solid B. I like this book. I like how it's a nice little companion piece to the show, and we'll see how it develops and how, like, eventually does it catch up to the show. Wolverine, this is issue 47, guys. Legacy numbering 389, 28 pages. This is a $5 comic book. This is both written by Benjamin Percy and Victor Lavelle. The art here is done by Jeff Shaw. I always love the bloodiness, the goriness, the fighting in this comic book. I think that's what makes it stand out. The great colors inside of it. You love the action scenes in here. We get to see some Wolverine and some Sabretooth battling. Sabretooth depowers Wolverine in this comic book, so it's going to lead up to the point of where Wolverine is wearing this adamantium armor. That's not a spoiler because we've known that. We get to see Quentin Quire obviously under Sabretooth's control, and he almost fatally, you know, destroys Wolverine, but that's not the case. He kind of holds back when Sabretooth uses his powers against him in here. We also get the Exiles in here, which I really don't care for. I think that's where this book, you know, lacks for me, because I just don't like those characters. I'm not a big Exile guy. And then you get to see Laura in here as well, as she's taking on the female Sabretooth, and that's pretty badass too, as they get to fight each other as she's, you know, crawling her way out of prison and finding this transmitter and stuff like that. Pretty decent, you know, character interactions in here. Was this as strong as previous issues, like when it first started? No, probably not, because I feel like this event is probably a few issues too long. I think if you did 6 issues on this bad boy, it would have been perfect, but it was still an entertaining read. I'm going to give this one also a solid B. So I want to know what you guys think of Sabretooth War at this point. Do you like the Exiles? Like, I don't know. Are you guys familiar with them? Let me know all that stuff in the comments below. Symbiote Spider-Man 2099. This is issue 2. This is 28-page comic for $4. This one is written by Peter David, and the art is done by Rogue Antonio. The artwork is pretty good, especially that opening page, as you get to see Spider-Man 2099 as he is now a Venom symbiote based off of what happened in this last issue. And we get to see Miguel O'Hara struggle with him being a symbiote. Now, this is not the true Venom symbiote. This is like some kind of like science experiment that wound up going wrong, right? Also in this comic book, we wind up getting to see like Chameleon 2099 as well, and he winds up giving the Kron Stone I guess an identity to pretend that he's Miguel O'Hara, so he can come into Acclimax and do all kinds of bad things, which leads to a huge fight between Venom and Spider-Man 2099. That's what you got to see here in this nice little 2-page spread, which was kind of cool as well. It was a fun story, you know, it really was a battle action type of issue. We get to see, again, Cronstone trying to take on Miguel O'Hara. We find out some kind of family situation going on in there. Peter David is continuing off of where he last left off when it comes to Spider-Man 2099. Which I think is kind of cool, but at the same time, I don't know for newer readers if you're going to kind of get what's going on with like Cronstone and Acclimax and Lila and all those different other characters. I don't feel like it's very new reader friendly, but again, for older readers, you're going to appreciate what Peter David is doing here. So as a person that read Symbiote Spider-Man in the past, I thought this was a good, solid issue. Again, this is going to be a B for me. I'm curious to see how long this event, or not this event, but this story is going to go on for. I don't know if this is an ongoing. If you guys know that, let me know in the comments below. And just Spiderverse. This is issue 3. This is a 40-page comic for the price of $5. We have Justin Ireland, Steve Fox, Kei Zama does artist, Pete Woods does the art. We get 2 stories in here. We get this Star Spider character who's introduced. The artwork is pretty neat. I like the coloring in it. We're in this future time or it's in Earth 1978, and we get introduced to this Spider character. Now, I feel like they keep coming out with these to see if there's going to be a new hit Spider, right? And when it came to the first story, I thought I would like this character, but I pretty much didn't, because I've seen this all before. This is nothing new. This is nothing original. We get introduced to a new Spider character that has a different version of Norman Osborn, a different version of Dr. Octopus that they have to fight against, and that's the story, you know, and then it's like, oh, the end, and maybe you'll see them in another event in the future. And the problem is, it's just because you put a fancy little spider suit on a different character doesn't mean that you are going to like them. Like, it's like, flesh out the character, slowly introduce them, don't put them in an adventure right away. It's just like, it's just, I don't know, man, it's just old at this point. When it came to Spider-Gwen, when she was introduced, it was different, it was new, you know, Spider-Man Noir, that was something that was different. Spider-Ham is a character that's been around for years, right? But it's just like, when it comes to these guys, it's just like, hey, here's another one, do you like it? And if you do, we're gonna put it in a future event, and it's just, I don't know, it's like rinse and repeat. It's like, hey, check this one out, check that one out. I don't know, man. I didn't like it. There's this other version of like Dr. Octopus again. It's just shit that we've seen 1,000 times before, and it just gets old. Again, pretty artwork, you know, nice colors in there, but it's just like the story didn't do anything for me, you know. Just because, again, you put on a different suit doesn't mean I'm gonna automatically like you. Give me some character growth. Give me some development. Give me something that I can attach to why I'm going to like the character. You know, it's just dumb. And then you get this Web Weaver story, which again, it's just another character where it's like, you were in one other book before, and now you're in another one, and like I'm supposed to like you. Like, I don't know, man. It's not for me. I'm kind of like one of those people too, where it's like I kind of like to spec on the new Spider character, or I collect it for a cover. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Spider fan, but overall, the more and more I read it, the older and older it gets. So at the end of the day, unfortunately, this one is a D for me. It did absolutely nothing for me. The Invincible Iron Man. This is issue 17. The legacy numbering is 667. 28-page comic for a price of $4. The writer is Jerry Duggan, who also writes X-Men, which I say he writes this book much better. And the art is done by Patrick Zircher. Now, the artwork is much different in this comic book because Patrick Zircher is the guest artist in here. So if you've been reading Iron Man in the past, you know what I'm talking about. If this is your first issue of reading and looking at Iron Man, this is not what you can expect usually. But why they use this artist, I can kind of understand, because Iron Man was in this huge battle with his huge Sentinel Buster armor, and his nemesis Fei Long had his own like War Machine freaking armor, and they collided and they battled, and basically Tony Stark gets knocked out. So here is his nemesis here, Fei Long, right? And eventually Tony Stark comes to and they start fighting each other. And we find out in this comic book that no longer is Fei Long or Orcus, the human side of things, and are in control. It's basically Nimrod. Now Nimrod is the true Orcus with Omega Sentinel, and they're taking over everything. They're taking over mutants, they're taking over humans. So this was all just like a red herring thing. It was just like, oh, hey, we pretend to team up with you, but now we're going to double cross you so we can get ahead. So you got that reveal in the last issue of X-Men, and you got that reinforced in this issue of Iron Man here. So now it looks like that Fei Long, the other mutants, and everybody else are going to have to team up and work together. Magneto joins the fight at the end here. This was a pretty good book. The art wasn't my favorite, but I understand kind of why the artist was selected for this particular issue. And then I do like the conclusion here on getting the reader to understand, hey, this is what's going on right now, in case you're not reading the X-Men book. I really think Jerry Duggan just has a much easier time handling this comic than all of the X-Men. So yeah, this one is definitely a good read. Once again, I'm going to give this one a B+. I really enjoyed it. It's the artwork that kind of held me back on it. The Incredible Hulk. This is issue 11. This is legacy numbering 792, getting close to 800 here, guys. 28 pages. This is a $4 comic written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. The artist on this one is Danny Earls. He's the other artist on this book, I feel like, besides Nick Klein. And when you don't have the Nick Klein artwork, this book definitely suffers. In this issue, we get to see a pretty lengthy battle between the Hulk and the frozen Charlotte character. And while this battle is commencing here, we wind up getting to see a little bit more of the frozen Charlotte character, kind of like what she is and what she does to little girls and people and stuff like that, turns them into dolls, and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool, but I know the Hulk is going to win and this character's not going to be around. Very predictable comic. And the thing about this comic book is that there's so very little dialogue, and you know what? At times, that's fun. Sometimes you do want to see just a straight out fight, little bit of dialogue. But for this comic book, this series in general, I feel like we get too much of that, right? And not enough storytelling. And here, look, this is what I'm talking about. Here is a word. There's 2 words. There's 2 word bubbles. It's like, this is all it is. And it's one point where it's just like, it's just like, I'm Hulk, the strongest one it is. And it takes like 6, 7, 8 panels to get across what he says. Here, look, nothing. And nothing, and then again, you get a very predictable story. At times, the art was better than other times, and you wind up getting to see Lucifer capture this frozen Charlotte character, and you see Hulk come across Charlie in a much different way. How is he going to save her or make her back whole again? I don't know. We'll see. It was an okay story, but was it very great? No. I want to see Nick Klein back. I need that story progression. I'm fine with having a big monster and a battle here and there, but when it relies on every single issue to do the same thing over and over again, it gets old after a while. You want to see that story progression. So for me, at the end of the day, this book was average. I'm going to give it a C, and we're going to see where it goes from here now that we'll get a new story arc, and I think Nick Klein is returning next issue. Thundercats, issue 3. This is a 32-page comic for the price of $5. The writer here is Declan Shalvey, and Drew Moss is the artist. Again, the art in this comic book, I feel like, can be so much better. Is it horrible art? No. But it's just, I don't know. I feel like it could be much better, especially when you see the comic book cover art on here. It's just not as detailed. Our characters are not as, I don't know, I would say defined as they should be, right? So, yeah, not my favorite artwork. Now, when it comes to the story, I also am not a huge fan of this particular story, unfortunately, because there's too many story threads going on here. We got the story thread of Lion-O, who's still trying to prove himself to be leader, and we see Panthro, who is one that doesn't respect him being leader. Then we wind up getting the introduction to Snarf, and I'm sorry, like, what the fuck is this? Snarf looks weird here, and he has this psychic connection with Lion-O. If I stand corrected, I don't remember Snarf having only this connection with Lion-O and no one else can hear him. That does not make any sense to me. I don't know if that's just storytelling to make it easier for the writer so he doesn't have to have everyone else chime in to Snarf's thoughts. I don't know. So for me, that just didn't work. We get this Calica character who is, I guess, controlled by Mumra. It's not really a real Thundercat, or Thunderian, I should say. You get the other story going on with, which is his name, Slythe, who is captured, and then he winds up getting introduced to the person he's going to be working with in the future. Then we get the discussion and the fight between Panthra and Chitara, sorry, I should say. And because of Lion-O's situation, there's just too much going on, man. It's just all over the place, and it's just like, can't Lion-O fight his own freaking battles himself? Guys, consider this book officially dropped. That's right, I am no longer reading this book. I just feel like it's just all over the place. It's disjointed. I can see the character growth in this comic, but it's being overshadowed by so many plot points in here. They're trying to cram so much into a comic book, and it's just not written well for me. And with the artwork where I felt like it should have been better, and being that I'm a Thundercat guy from the 1980s, it's just not hitting for me, man. So I'm going to officially drop this book. Was it the worst thing I ever read? No, absolutely not. I'm going to give this one a C. I think it was an average read, but an average read, sometimes I got to start making drops somewhere, or I'm just going to read average comic books for the rest of my life, and I just can't do that. Batman and Robin, this is issue 8, 28 pages for the price of $5, written by Joshua Williamson. The art is done by Nicola, I'm not even going to begin to say that name. Artwork looks good in this comic book. I think it's a different artist again. It's a lot of in your face. There's a lot of action in here. We get the return of the Robin Mobile, which is a lot of fun. We get to see also Flatline in this comic. And we also get to see Flatline's sister. Her name is Mila. And she kind of like double crosses Robin in this issue so she can get her sister out of town so she doesn't get captured. We also get to see the team up between Batman and Sush, and we get to see Man-Bat in this issue. We get a lot of see double crosses in this book. But yeah, artwork again just looks really, really good here. Man-Bat looks awesome. And after we get some, apologizing from Flatline that he double-crossed Damian, he understands why she did it and things like that. And we get to see Flatline kind of attend Damian's high school now to do the investigating in this comic. And I thought that was kind of really cool. So now we get to see some high school drama action. I like this comic, man. It's good. It's a lot of fun. It's a little bit lighthearted. And, Flatline reminds me of like Catwoman in many ways, because she kind of like screws with Damian, kind of like how Selina screws with Bruce Wayne. So I thought that was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the next issue. This one is a solid, let's give this one a B+. This one was a little bit better, I felt, than the last issue, and I love all the explosive in-your-face action, and there's a decent story being told here. Phantom Road, this is issue 10. This is the end of the second story arc. This is 28 pages for the price of $4. Our writer here is Jeff Lemire. Gabriel Hernandez Walta is the artist. The art's good, man, and Jeff Lemire has some weird-ass story, let me just tell you, going on in this comic book. And it continues where it last left off, where we wind up getting to see the little ancient, or I don't know if it's ancient or supernatural, or this little baby that came from this egg, right? It hatched and it brought Birdie and Dom together. There are two main characters, and they're connected by their memories, and they both have tragic pasts. And now that they know everything about each other and they saw into each other's history, they're a little bit more connected, but they still want to shut each other out in those types of instances. But in the book, you wind up seeing them come across the zombie-like creatures, but our little baby is like protecting them from them, right? And they all like respect this little hatchling. Like, I don't even know what's going on at this point now. And in this issue now, you get more into the detective that has been connected to all this in the past. And we found out that she was taken, and she was taken to this to this warehouse where this first truck stop was, like this, what is it called, Billy Bear or something like that? Yeah, Billy Bear. And then they come across this guy who was the original owner, and it like ends, and you're like, what the heck, man? I can't get any freaking answers in this comic book. There's always more and more and more questions, more and more story threads, but for some reason the mystery is so intriguing that you want to continue to read it, right? It doesn't overwhelm you or anything like that. The only thing is that at least I want some answers before I go into another story arc, but we'll see what happens. I'm not sure when the next one comes out, but this is a really well-written and well-thought-of comic book, and you like the characters in here, so I'm going to give this one a B+ as well. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, The Return. This is issue 3. Go, go, Power Rangers! 28 pages, $5. This book is written by Amy Jo Johnson herself, the Pink Ranger. The art is done by Matt Hudson. The artwork's good in this comic, man. I love the way all our Power Ranger characters look. We wind up getting to see Rita Repulsor's daughter in this comic, which I think is pretty badass too. And basically, you get this story of how Rita is here still, because she is still alive. We get to see the return of all these other characters, and she's just like kept in this like capsule, and they needed all the Power Rangers like little power coins in order to revive her. And there was one little coin that was missing, and the one that was missing was the green one, which is Tommy, right? If I remember correctly, yeah, he's the Green Ranger. And then you find out at the end of the comic who has that green coin. I don't want to spoil that for you, but that was actually pretty cool to see. This was an awesome book, and for a person that's not a Power Ranger guy, like I know of the Power Rangers, but I always thought that the show was cheesy. I really enjoy this contained story here. So if there's a book that I want to recommend to you when it comes to Power Rangers, this is it. It takes place 22 years in the future. And at the end of the day, I'm going to give this one a A-. I really enjoy this book. It's a lot better than I ever thought it was going to be. And I'm curious now how we're going to see our heroes fight the enemy going forward. And I don't know how many issues this is, but it will be a lot of fun. So let me know in the comments below, guys. Green Lantern, this is issue 10, 40 pages for the price of $5. This one's written by Jeremy Adams, and the art is done by Zermanico. Artwork looks great. All the colors are very colorful. Did I say characters? Did I say colors are very colorful? All the characters are very colorful. Let's just go with that one, okay? We get to see like JoJo Mullins, we get to see Simon Baz, we get to see Jessica Cruz, a little bit of Kyle Rayner in this comic book. And being that Hal Jordan can now leave Earth, based off of the backup battery on Earth, he goes to Oa to find out the mystery of what's going on with all the other power batteries, okay? And we wound up getting to see some pretty deep, dark secrets that are going on with the United Planets. I think that's what they're called. And we get to see how Jordan very much go into action in this comic and take matters into his own hands. Very, headstrong. That's the way the character is, right? So I really enjoyed this book. And seeing all these different lanterns again is leading me to believe that in this book we're very much going to get the Green Lantern Corps once again all together fighting battles. And this is starting to feel more and more like, I want to give Jeremy Adams credit because he's writing a good story, but this is feeling like more and more like the Jeff Johns Lantern run a little bit, but like with his own twist. And Jeremy Adams kind of got to fix things of what happened from the last Green Lantern run. So I like this book. I can't wait to see the direction it goes. I'm going to give this one a B+, because I hate the backup story. It's supposed to tie into like the Brainiac, House of Brainiac storyline, and I hated it. It was just like, oh, come on, this is what I'm talking about when it comes to tie-in stories. Like, it's so dumb. I didn't like the artwork. It's like you got Lobo wrestling and you got Guy grabbing Lobo. It's just, I don't know. For me, that part didn't do it for me. And those are waste of pages that kind of drive up the price of a comic book. But the main story, that's where you're getting it at, guys. And I think this is a phenomenal, phenomenal read. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. This is issue 5, 28 pages for the price of $4. The writer and artist here is Patrick Horvath. Guys, at this point, if you're reading this book, you know what to expect from it. It's really a great comic book. At first I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be like a nursery rhyme book with some bears in it, or like the Bear Sting Band bears. I never thought it was going to be as dark as it was, right? So in this comic book, we wind up getting to see Samantha running from the crime that was found, right? So she's been going into town, she's been killing people and or animals and bringing them back, and she's been putting them in paint cans in her paint shop. And it was ratted out by a rat himself who's committing crimes, like copycat crimes, just like her. And they're blaming it on her because the stuff was in her paint shop. So she goes out of town. She tries to go in hiding. And, she's running from the cops and everything else. And she comes to grips with a realization of herself when she sees herself in the mirror, or she sees a bear fighting another bear, like a real bear. And she winds up finding out that, why am I running? Why am I scared? Like, I'm the apex predator here. Why am I gonna freaking, go in hiding and stoop down to this freaking little rat, right? So that's what you got to see at the end as she's starting to get her supplies together, which looks like these guys are gonna fight each other. What's going to happen in the last issue? Who knows? But overall, this series has been great. It's a nice little surprise that I never thought would be any good. And that's what's so great about these independent comic books. This book is the top pick of the week for me when it comes to, you know, after the poll. It's going to be an A+. Curious to see again, how the whole thing concludes. So there you have it, webheads. There are all the books that I read for the current comic book week. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave me all those comments below on what you thought of these comic books. And do you agree with me on the dropping of Thundercats? And as always, guys, I'm going to leave you more content right here for you to check out. And of course, support the local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting. But always remember to read your comic books so we can have that awesome comic book conversation. Guys, I'll see you real soon. Take care. Bye.